There are many people who, in order to fuel their theories, don't hesitate to lie, cut videos, or spread incomplete information to force a relationship between Jungkook and Jimin. What happened during Jin's concert is further proof of this. The idea has been spreading that Jimin and Jungkook arrived together, as if they were a couple, which is flatly false. The reality, as always, is much clearer and is supported by facts, not wishful thinking. On the day of the event, Jimin, Suga, and Jungkook arrived in the same car, not just Jimin and Jungkook, as some irresponsibly claimed. To be specific, Jimin was in the front seat, while Suga and Jungkook were in the back. There's absolutely nothing romantic or special about that arrival to continue fueling fictitious stories. But still, there are those who prefer to ignore the facts and continue to invent scenarios that don't exist. These rumors are not harmless, they create a forced narrative that not only confuses fans but also puts the members themselves in an uncomfortable situation. Jungkook, in particular, has been a constant victim of this type of forced fan service, often imposed by the company itself, but also exaggerated by certain sectors of the fandom who don't understand the difference between reality and what's fabricated for the camera. The relationship between the group members is close and brotherly, but not every interaction should be interpreted as a sign of romance. And this is important because while some make up stories with Jimin, they completely ignore the solid, long-standing, and detail-filled relationship between Taeyoung and Jungkook, which is a very different story and much more coherent when observed closely. Unlike what we see with Jimin, what Taeyoung and Jungkook have to offer isn't sustained by a single poorly edited video or a blurry fan cam. Their connection has been demonstrated for years, with consistent attitudes, natural looks, and a level of trust that isn't forced or overacted. They don't need cameras to prove there's something more between them. On the contrary, they tend to be more discreet when they know there are eyes on them. Returning to the topic of Jin's concert, after the event there was also an attempt to make it seem like Jimin and Jungkook left together, as if they had a special couples outing. But again, the facts contradict this version. The first video that circulated was edited in such a way that it appeared they were both getting into the same car, but a second, more complete and uncut video clearly showed that there were 3 cars waiting for them, and that each one left separately. Jungkook got into a different car than Jimin's. Suga also left on his own. Neither of them left with someone as a couple. There was no joint dinner, no romantic getaway, or anything like that. It was simply the usual outing for 3 members who attended a concert and returned home separately. What's the problem, then? The problem is the manipulation of information and the obsession with forcing ties where none exist. It's important to learn to identify when you're dealing with a real fact and when you're dealing with an illusion created with malicious intent. Many of these rumors originate from accounts dedicated exclusively to fueling a false narrative, and they do so knowing that there are fans who still don't know how to filter what they see on social media. It's unfair to the members, and especially unfair to Jungkook, who finds himself engulfed in a sea of unfounded theories every time he appears on camera with someone. Furthermore, these attempts to force a relationship with Jimin not only misinform, but they also divert attention from much deeper and more coherent bonds, like the one Jungkook has built with Taeyoung over the years. Therefore, these types of rumors are not only baseless, but also disrespectful to the truth and the real bond Jungkook has with another person. When facts are so blatantly distorted, just to fuel fantasies, it's necessary to be clear: Jungkook neither came nor left with Jimin. It wasn't as a couple, or as a date, or anything like that. It was just 3 people who shared an event and left separately. Everything else is baseless speculation. An obvious example happened at J-Hope's concert, where Jungkook and Taeyoung shared a genuine moment. Jungkook, without thinking twice, tickled Taeyoung's sides. Taeyoung's reaction was just a genuine smile and a spontaneous gesture. He wrapped his arms around Jungkook's waist, laughing happily without any discomfort. They were comfortable, and everything seemed to flow naturally, as if there were no cameras around. This wasn't just a cute moment, it was a spontaneous scene that showed love, trust, and mutual affection. Because when someone touches you without warning, your reaction usually says a lot about the bond you have with that person. Now, let's compare that to another much tense and little discussed moment at Jin's concert. Jungkook tried to repeat that playful gesture with Jimin. He made a little joke, something similar to what he did with Taeyoung. But this time, the reaction was completely different. Far from laughing or returning the gesture, Jimin punched him in the face. It wasn't a joke between friends, it was an aggressive and visible reaction. And just look at Jungkook's face right afterward, his expression said it all. He stood still, not knowing how to react. Some try to justify that moment as love, as if hitting someone were a sign of affection. But there's no valid justification for that kind of behavior. No one who feels comfortable or loved reacts violently to an innocent gesture. That's why comparing Jungkook's relationship with Taeyoung to the one he has with Jimin is not only incorrect, it's a way of denying the obvious. A large part of the public is influenced by what they see on screen, moments cut, edited, and designed to fuel fan service. Especially in the case of Jimin and Jungkook, there are many carefully selected clips that show closeness between them, but always in front of the cameras, never off camera. And that should make you think. Why does that strong relationship only appear when there are official recordings? Why are there almost no authentic gestures when no one is looking? What we do have are years of natural and spontaneous interactions between Taeyoung and Jungkook. They don't wait for a camera to hug, laugh, or look at each other. Theirs isn't fan service, it just happens. Even when there are no cameras or they're off-screen, their gestures remain the same: closeness, connection, and a lot of trust. It's also important to understand how the industry works. Companies often force idols to create fake interactions between certain members to satisfy audience demands. That sells, that generates content. And that helps maintain interest. But what we see between Jimin and Jungkook fits too well into that forced mold. There's no natural progression, no sincere moments off-screen. There's only what they want to show you. On the other hand, with Taeyoung and Jungkook, there is history, there are years of shared moments, both on and off camera. There's small, consistent, and repeated evidence that shows their relationship isn't scripted. They don't act differently whether fans are watching or not. They naturally seek each other out, understand each other without speaking, respect each other, and care for each other. In the end, it's not about hating or attacking other members. It's about seeing things as they are, not how they want to make them seem. Jungkook has a very clear way of playing with those he wants, but not everyone receives it equally. And that's not Jungkook's fault. It speaks to the personal dynamics between them. And the truth is, his relationship with Taeyoung is full of signs that point to something much deeper, while what's happening with Jimin seems to be designed for a script that's becoming less and less believable. The relationship between Taeyoung and Jungkook can't be described as just an ordinary friendship within a band. What exists between them goes far beyond the usual gestures between co-workers or close friends. Their connection is constant, deep, and visible, and doesn't need words to be understood. Just observe the way they behave around each other. There's an emotional and physical fluidity that doesn't exist with any other member of the band. When they're together, their bodies act as if they're in sync. They hold hands naturally, without worrying about who's watching or what context they're in. This isn't the case with the rest of the group, where physical contact usually has a more limited purpose or is much shorter in duration. Instead, between them, every gesture, a shoulder rub, a brief caress, a sustained gaze, occurs with a calmness that makes it clear they're comfortable with that level of closeness. There's no awkwardness or need for explanation. It's a trust built over time, but also an intimacy that doesn't fit into the category of simple friendship. There are recordings of the two appearing just before a concert. There, you can see Taeyoung calming Jungkook, speaking in his ear, touching his back, or holding his hand while looking at him with a serene expression. These are gestures of emotional and physical support that demonstrate a strong, thoughtful, and repeated connection. Jungkook is also seen returning that attention, accompanying him, making sure Taeyoung is okay before going on stage. There's no show for the camera. Most of these moments happen even when they think no one is watching. It's clear they do it out of necessity, not because they're trying to impress. In situations filmed by fans or behind the scenes, it's common to see them interacting at their own pace, almost as if the rest didn't exist. They search for each other with their eyes, they understand each other with a single gesture. If one changes position, so does the other. If one initiates physical contact, the other accepts it immediately, as if their body knows what's coming. There's no rejection, hesitation, or distance. It's a form of nonverbal communication that's very rare to find, especially in a public setting where everything is monitored, edited, or calculated. The most important thing is that they don't hide this behavior or restrict it to the private sphere. In public, they continue to act the same. Even when surrounded by journalists, cameras, or fans, the attention they pay to each other remains distinct. They don't interrupt when the other speaks, they silently observe, attentive, hanging on to the other's words or mood. And in some cases, they even share gestures that clearly have a personal meaning, such as touching each other's legs under the table, whispering to each other during interviews, or exchanging glances that last longer than usual.